Welcome back to Taming the Wild. This is part 2 of our session. The first session was 1 hour credit, and this session is your 2 hours. You have to fully complete full sessions to get the certificate for 2 credit hours. I'm glad to see you're all back. I hope you enjoyed doing your homework assignment and that you didn't have too many complications getting it done and submitting it to me. If you have any questions with this class, any of the in-class assignments, feel free to email me and I will give you any kind of support you need so that you can get this course done. This class will be similar to our last one, and the video portion of the class will run about 30 minutes. So part of how I confirm attendance for the class is not only your homework assignment, but also your in-class assignments. So please make sure when I ask you to type in the chat box or send me an email that you do that, because just the homework assignment will not count as you completing this whole course. You do have to complete the assignments that are given during this video as well. So in the first part of Taming the Wild, we discussed causes of misbehavior and we related it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We kind of looked at the why students may misbehave and then solutions to those needs that are not being met. We also discussed some ways to set up a calming environment, and these are things that you can do to avoid conflict before it starts. So just as a review, we discussed how you have to meet the needs at the bottom of the pyramid before you can reach the top of your pyramid. So if you want a child to learn a basic set of rules, you have to make sure you are meeting their physical needs like food, water, and warmth, and making sure they have their psychological needs met, like having friendships in the classroom, having a feeling of accomplishment, make them feel proud of their work and proud of them for following the rules and standing in line and keeping their hands to themselves. All of this has to be met in order to meet their self-actualization needs, which would be where the child is learning to follow the rules and have a routine and know what to expect. In part 2 of this class, we're going to be reviewing and having a discussion about your homework assignment. We will talk about setting up your classroom environment a little bit more. You will have another example and another video to watch. We will also talk about provocations and what they are. In case you don't know, they are a great tool for avoiding misbehaviors in the classroom. We'll discuss how they help you. We will also discuss using guidance for misbehavior versus using discipline in the classroom. And lastly, we will discuss parent communication and how to handle things when you are having misbehaviors and helpful ways to get support from parents. So your homework assignment that you should have emailed to me was to identify 3 things for yourself from the pyramid that is not being met, and then to identify 3 solutions. If this were a face-to-face class, I would ask for volunteers to share some of the things that aren't being met for themselves, but since it's not, I created my own list of 3 needs that are not being met for myself as a teacher. So back when I was a teacher, I think we are all guilty of this, especially when I was also a teacher and a student at the same time working on my degree. I would come into work just tired. Being tired, you have a little bit less patience with your coworkers, maybe with the students. You might not be as energetic, and entertaining for group time, you simply might not be that fun to the children in your class when you show up tired. So, of course, the solution that I identified for myself would be to go to sleep earlier at night. Things that would support this would be, turning off the TV to fall asleep. Maybe reduce the blue light going into your eyes. There's been studies that have shown that this stimulates your brain too much, so it's hard to wind down at night. So before bed, it's better to do something like read a book or listen to some calming music, meditate, pray, whatever it is that will calm you down. Maybe just take a warm shower before you get in bed, just to fall asleep earlier, just to make sure you have good quality sleep. Everybody needs a different amount of sleep. I need a lot. I need a full 8 hours, sometimes more, to feel good. So, in order to be prepared as a teacher, I need to focus on getting a full 8 hours of sleep, so I'm not tired in the classroom. Another thing that relates to the safety need that we have as humans was job security for me. I would not be maybe confident at times if I saw like enrollment drop, or if I felt like the school I was working for was struggling in the community. I would feel like I didn't have job security. There was one period at a school in a different county that I worked for that they eliminated a lot of vouchers. They had big budget cuts at DSS. So we lost so many children. We were combining classrooms, and that loss of job security really started to make me lose my confidence as a teacher. It made me question, should I be doing this for a living? Is this a safe career to be in? Of course, it all worked out. The school is great and flourishing and full of children again. It was just a temporary budget cut from Department of Social Services. Some things happen that are out of control, and I didn't lose my job. But a way to kind of help that need that wasn't being met for me is, instead of feeling that stress and that insecurity, I could have had a discussion with my boss of, how are you going to troubleshoot this? Is my job secure? And that could have made me feel better. So communication could help if that's your issue as a teacher. Another one of my needs that was not being met is actually from the top of the pyramid. It was self-fulfillment. You want to feel like you have reached your full potential. I've always felt like that. I've always felt like I needed to learn more in my field. I needed to be striving to do better and on to the next thing. And one thing that did satisfy that for me is taking professional development courses. I would sign up for a class at my local partnership and take a class that reminded me of my why I was working in childcare, reminded me why I'm passionate about it, why it's important to have high quality classrooms. So those are my 3 things, my 3 issues where I'm tired, felt insecure because of job security, and I didn't feel like I was reaching my self-fulfillment. And those are my solutions that I came up with. Sleeping more, have a discussion with my boss about my insecurities, and to take professional development for me. So since you guys have all completed your 3 needs and your 3 solutions as your homework assignment before we started this part 2 of Taming the Wild, you've all been able to identify something. If we were face to face, we could have an open discussion about this, but in place of that, I would like you to answer these following 2 questions in the chat box under the YouTube video. So under the video screen is a comment section, and you could type it into the chat box. It shows up as like your username in front of it. If you want your responses to be private, you could send them to me in the email. This counts as your in-class participation. But the 2 questions that I want you to ponder are you reaching your greatest potential as a teacher if your own needs are not being met? And the second one is, how can you make an effort to make sure your needs are met before you enter your classroom? You've already thought about this. You've already identified 3 things. I just want you to kind of summarize your thoughts and put them in the comment box so that other people can hear. We all have a little different viewpoint and take on this lesson we just went through. So I would really like it if everyone could read each other's responses. I think it would help us learn a lot from this course. So we discussed in part 1 how classroom setup can affect a child's behavior. We looked at the picture of the room that was maybe a little too crowded and the colors were very bright, so it could be overstimulating for the children as they enter. And then we watched a video of a classroom that had a really calming feel to it. And really, truly, the classroom is another teacher. Children learn just as much from the teacher, if not more, from the environment that they're in, whether that's outdoors or inside. So we're going to discuss even more how to set up the classroom environment in a way to avoid misbehaviors. One really great way that I think is very practical to set up your classroom to avoid misbehaviors is to have provocations available. Provocations have to be set up before the child enters the room, but what they will do is get them engaged as soon as they come in. They have something interesting that they want to do and something fun and different available when they walk into the classroom. If you make a habit of this, your children will start to become excited to come in every day and see what their next provocation is. So although this takes a lot of thought and prep work, to have available every day and to make sure you have a variety of provocations available, this is a really great practical tool for avoiding misbehaviors in the classroom. So simply put, provocations provoke. They provoke thoughts, discussions, questions, interests, creativity, and ideas. They expand on a thought, a project, or an idea. So you could have a topic for your provocation, like buildings. If you are going to create a provocation for buildings, you would probably have a book of pictures of buildings in your building center, or maybe a new poster on the wall in the building center, where if a child just walks into the block center, they're going to see that picture and they're going to be provoked to maybe mimic that, or provoked to maybe ask questions about how did somebody really build that? What tools did they use? We have wooden blocks. That building looks like cement. That building looks like metal. That teepee is made out of cloth. How can we make a teepee in the classroom? Provocations will provoke these thoughts in children. Journey into Early Childhood defines provocations as deliberate and thoughtful decisions made by the teacher to extend the ideas of the children. Teachers provide materials, media, and general direction as needed, but the children take the ideas where they want. This allows children to develop skills of creativity, inventiveness, and flexibility in thinking, planning, and reflecting. I'm going to go into what it means to set up a provocation in the next few slides a little bit more. Provocations are experiences that the educator sets up in response to the children's interests and ideas. So provocations, they are something that the teacher or the administrator picks for the children to explore a little bit further. They should ideally be based on something that particular group of children is interested in. When you set up a provocation, you are providing a hands-on experience for the children to explore, to practice, to test, construct, and this allows them to deconstruct their own ideas and their own theories. So in this picture is a table with a provocation. On this table, there are black sheets of felt paper and some marbles. It looks like there's also some crayons of various colors. And that's basically all that was set out. That felt paper in the middle may have the letter C put out as an example to provoke the children to maybe create letters with these materials. You can kind of do that with anything you have. Have one set up as an example that the children can kind of build on or like to inspire them. But in this specific case, it does look like the girl to the left is using the tools to build a letter. So she's learning literacy. She's also working on fine motor skills. The boy on the right-hand side has a crayon in his hand, and he looks like he may have mimicked the letter C that's in the middle. So if you were to have a provocation like this, you can let the children explore however they want to. If a child wants to make a circle, if they want to work on making patterns with these tools, you can let them do whatever they want. But this is a new, fresh way to set up materials, a new material for the children to explore, and they can express themselves however they want. A great thing for you to do as a teacher, though, is to be the facilitator and ask prompting, open-ended questions while the children are doing this. Why are you using that pattern? Why is the girl only using blue? These are great questions to ask as they're working with these provocations. The great thing about provocations is it doesn't require teacher direction. This table can be set up as children walk in the room. So this is a great way to avoid misbehaviors. When children walk into your classroom, they can walk to a table that has a provocation set up already, and you have a group of children that are fully engaged immediately as soon as they walk in the room. As long as your provocations are interesting and they're based on things that your group of children is interested in doing, they're going to use them, and you don't have to say, hey, it's time to work on literacy, everybody sit down. They will naturally be drawn to use these tools and materials. So this is another example of what a provocation can look like. Again, this one addresses literacy, it looks like, and maybe some numbers. If that's a number 6, I can't tell if it's a 6 or a G. But you're also working on fine motor skills. There's a little bit of science in there because it looks like there are some color sheets, and this is actually set up on a light table. So this specific provocation is hitting all the domains of development and really interesting for a child to come in and play around with these tools that are set up. This can really help avoid misbehaviors because a child, when they enter the classroom, is going to see this as interesting. A child that has sensory needs is going to absolutely love getting their hands in that play sand. And while they're getting their hands in that play sand, they're learning their colors. Children come into the world wired to make sense of life. When we pay attention to the things that children are interested in, learning becomes incredibly important to the child. Children learn things through play. Children want to play. You don't have to talk them into playing. They come into the classroom ready to play with something. So when we're creating and facilitating our classrooms, if we incorporate provocations, we are making sure they learn with the materials that are provided. On this screen, there's two more examples of provocation. I really like that the one on the right is using some natural materials. This is a great reminder for teachers that are on a budget. You really don't have to spend money to come up with great provocations. All you have to do is go outside. You can use a pile of grass and make a provocation out of it. So with these two pictures, I want you to use the chat box again under the YouTube video and type in some skills that you think the children that are using these provocations can be building on. And since we're really directing this training at avoiding misbehaviors, I want you to look at some of the specific items in these two pictures and try to identify how these items could engage a child that does have frequent misbehaviors in the classroom. I know when I was a 2-year-old teacher, one of the easiest ways to get everyone to kind of calm down was to pull out the Play-Doh. If I got that Play-Doh out, I didn't have to fuss at all those 2-year-olds to sit down. They were all really happy and willing to do it, and it kept their interest for quite a while. So the one on the right actually shows that they're using some Play-Doh in these provocations. So if you can, type in the chat box at least 3 skills that the children are building on when playing with these specific provocations. Now I want you to go to your email and find the link I sent you on provocations. Watch this video. It's about 4 minutes long, and you will see tons of ways that you can use provocations both inside and outside of your classroom. And what I want you to really think about when you're watching this video is how calming and engaging these activities are. When your environment is engaging for children, there's so much less room for misbehavior to happen. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video that showed a lot of provocations, and I hope you could feel kind of inspired to incorporate some of that in your room. Again, doing these things, you can usually use what you already have in your classroom or find things that are free or in nature to use to create these provocations. So I just wanted to close on this section of the training with giving you some more examples. Investigation stations are a great provocation, and this is basically just a table set up with new items to explore, something the children have never seen before. It's brand new. They're all gonna be, they'll be like magnets to it. Just keep in mind the age group that you have, especially things like choking hazards. If it fits through a paper towel roll, it should not be under in a classroom where you have children under 3. So think about things like choking hazards or items that might be toxic. If you Google provocations on the internet, or if you look them up on Pinterest, just make sure they're age appropriate for your classroom. Adding books to provoke learning to interest areas. So every single one of your centers can have books in it. Your books don't have to be just in the book center. I know that you have to have a certain number of books if you're a 3, 4, 5-star center in your book center. So you probably want to keep what you're supposed to have in your literacy center, your cozy corner, but don't let them stop you from spreading out the literacy in other places in your classroom. You can add real objects to a play area, like real flowers to the dramatic play area. You can add maybe real pairs of shoes to dramatic play and not just dress up shoes. Shoes with ties for, a pre-K classroom. A lot of your children won't be able to tie shoes yet, and maybe you could have a laced up pair of sneakers and they can explore tying their shoes. Adding real materials like real pots and pans or mixing bowls. One thing I especially like is having real tools that take measurements. This is helping the children learn to use their math skills. Have the Dollar Tree measuring cups in your sandbox, and they can compare bigger, smaller, less, or more. These are just a few examples I wanted to give you before kind of closing on the provocations section. So we've talked a lot about the importance of setting up the environment in order to avoid misbehaviors. We talked about dimming the lights to make it calming, not having the colors in the room be overstimulating, paying attention to the noise level. We really went into provocations pretty deeply. But behaviors are still happening. It's reality. We've all been in an early childhood classroom. I understand you could do all of these things and you can still have fighting. You can still have children not sharing. You could still have children being destructive with materials. So we're going to go even further, and we are going to talk about using guidance instead of discipline to direct children's behaviors. So when we're talking about using guidance instead of discipline, we have to be aware that the children in our preschool classrooms are just beginning to learn the very complex skills of getting along with others. I'm sure we all know adults that struggle to get along with others. These are skills that we work on our whole lives as humans. Children are going to have disagreements. Children are going to have misbehaviors. Sometimes they will be very dramatic and hard to redirect. They really don't know any better because they haven't learned yet, and it's our job to teach them. Children can learn from their mistakes. Please make sure in your classroom that you don't hold a child's mistakes against them. You have to understand that children really, truly don't know right from wrong, and they haven't always developed the maturity to control themselves, even if they do know the rules. Punishment or discipline can make children feel stressed. It can make them feel hurt and rejected, and very often we see in classrooms that it makes them feel angry. Having these big adult feelings makes it hard for children to learn the right emotional and social skills. So if we're punishing them and we're instigating these big emotions like anger, they can't focus on learning the right skill. Sometimes when we're disciplining, we're making it more hard for the child to learn what we really want them to learn. So in the early childhood setting, there's 3 really common sources of conflict. These are property, the toys they have, what they're playing with, their clothing, territory, where they're playing, and privilege. I want that. It's mine, even if you're playing with it. So the 3 things were property, territory, and privilege. So I'm going to give you an illustration that has a property-related conflict. This illustration is from the link I provided for you in the email. It's not a video this time. It's like a handout from NAEYC. They have so many great resources for teachers to be using on any topic, but this is a great resource because it gives specific scenarios and then solutions. So I'm going to read you a scenario, and then we can talk about possible ways to guide the children's behavior versus disciplining the children's behavior. So Jason is 42 months old. He's the only one at the Play-Doh table. He gets a grin on his face and pulls the whole chunk of dough in front of him. He starts working the dough and mutters, "Making a dinosaur nest and eggs." Daisha, who's 52 months, sits at the table and sees Jason, who has all the Play-Doh. She says, "Hey, give me some." Jason hands Daisha a tiny little bit and circles his arm around the big mound. Daisha responds by grabbing a large handful of dough out from under Jason's arm. Jason screams. When he tries to grab the dough back, Daisha pushes him and starts kneading the Play-Doh. The teacher sees Jason on the floor, crying, and Daisha using the Play-Doh as if nothing had happened. As teachers in our classrooms, we come across these types of scenarios frequently, really all day long. We have a choice when dealing with these types of conflicts. And we can either choose discipline or we can choose guidance. Discipline would be the teacher walking right up to Daisha, standing above her because she sees Jason crying and saying loudly, "You've taken something from one of your friends. You need to go sit in the timeout chair for 3 minutes so that you will remember to share with your friends." If we're not using discipline, we can take a different approach that will have a more lasting effect. The first thing you should do in these types of situations is you should always comfort the child that was hurt or offended first. So in this case, if I was the teacher in this classroom, I would go to Jason, who's on the floor because he got pushed and he's upset, and I would comfort him. I would calm him down so that he doesn't have those big feelings that are distracting him from being able to learn in the situation. And I would sit down with both of these children once Jason's calmed down and give them each a chance to say what happened. Now remember, we're dealing with children under 5, so they're not always going to have the words to explain it to us. If they need help giving the scenario or retelling what happened, you can give them the words. You can ask questions like, "Did he share with you? and they could give responses that are yes or no instead of having to tell the whole scenario. So help the child however you can describe the conflict. Usually letting the child who was offended first, it helps a little bit so that they're not interrupting the other one because they're so offended. If you let them talk first, it usually helps a little bit. Depends on the personality of the children. So in this scenario, you can give each child a chance to explain what happened. And then the best part of guidance is you ask the children, what can we do to fix this? Give them a chance to make the right choice. If they can't come up with a solution, you could give them a suggestion, like, would it be fair if we split the Play-Doh in half? That was a tongue twister for me. And you both got the same amount. The children could maybe recognize that's fair and recognize that's the appropriate response when they need to share. We want to have a lasting effect when we're redirecting children. If you use the timeout chair for Daisha, then Jason's learning nothing, and he really truly didn't share. And Daisha's also learning nothing and probably getting angry or sad and missing out on playtime that she could be learning. Using guidance is a much better and long-lasting way to teach children social skills and ways to manage their behavior internally. It takes a lot more time and facilitating from the teacher, but it's our job to teach them. And if you're in that classroom and those children are under your care, then you need to take that time to facilitate it. Guidance takes a lot of time. Guidance actually takes a lot more time than just discipline. But this is why it works, and this is why it's worth the time. When using guidance, it allows both children to feel that they are worthy individuals in the classroom who belong there. They're made to feel like they're capable of solving their own problems, and they can learn from their mistakes. Second, children who have boldness to take things from others most often also have the individual strength to become leaders if teachers support them appropriately in developing these skills. We should be careful not to hinder skills that could be future leadership skills. This change really requires belief in the child and firm and friendly and consistent guidance, with an emphasis on being friendly. Guidance also provides powerful lessons in language arts and social studies. Children who learn to put a strong emotion into words, they build communication skills that can serve them for their entire lives. We all know adults that could use better communication skills. Every time children in the classroom see guidance being used by their teachers, by both children and adults, they learn the really vital lesson that everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves respect. And we want children to know and understand this. Everyone is a worthy individual. Everyone belongs in the group, and everyone can participate in problem solving. Going beyond understanding the why behind taming the wild, going beyond our classroom environment that we've set up to the best of our ability, and going beyond improving our guidance skills and lessening how much we use discipline in the classroom, we still need to look at parent communication when we are dealing with misbehaviors in the classroom. There are certain skills you can develop to have really positive and effective parent communication. Some misbehaviors you do need backup from the parents. You need to make sure that you're communicating with parents about what's going on, whether their child is the victim or the aggressor in the situation. So the next few slides, we're going to take the time to really look at parent communication in detail. Effective parent-teacher communication is really important in the classroom for the student to be successful, especially when you're talking about misbehaviors. Student, even a very young child, even a toddler, knows that the teacher communicates on a regular basis with their parents, and they know that their parents trust the teacher. This student will be more likely to put more effort into behaving in the classroom. Good teachers communicate frequently. They develop a relationship with parents and guardians. They should be approachable. They should also document communication, especially when it has to do with misbehaviors. They should listen to parents and work on building their trust. So I had a director who had a wonderful school that she built from the ground up, and she was very educated, and she just had the core and the passion of early childhood. She was just a model director. And one of the things she taught me was the sandwich feedback technique. And with this technique, you are supposed to give praise, throw in the criticism, and then end with praise. If you use this technique, you're always ending on a good note for both the parent and the child that can probably hear you having this conversation. So, an important thing to think about when you're thinking about the importance of using the sandwich technique is you don't want a parent to come at the end of the day and only give them bad news, only give them feedback on what their child did wrong, or even only that their child got hurt that day. You want to make sure that the parent knows and understands that there were positives in that child's day. So it's really great to start with a positive, then give them the not so great news, and then end with a positive. Tell them something funny that their child did as a closing statement. Tell them something kind that their child did throughout the day as a closing statement. Using this technique helps eliminate the possibility of the parent being offended or feeling like you're labeling their child. Using this technique also helps give the student in the class the impression that you care about them, and that although you are relaying the information of something that they did throughout the day that wasn't the greatest, you also recognize and acknowledge that they did something right throughout the day. Parents are definitely the expert on their own children. They know them the best. They have the closest relationship with them. But you as a teacher are the expert on early childhood education. So when you're talking to a parent about a concern, don't go to the parent looking for the answer or bring the issue to the parent as if they can solve it on their own. You should really always go to a parent ready to explain strategies that you've already used in the classroom to address the issue, just to let them know that you didn't not try before they got there. You've taken certain steps to teach the child the appropriate behavior. and maybe next step strategies that you're considering. Parents don't want concerns dropped in their lap without a tentative action plan. Parents are going to want to know that you have a plan to address their child's behavior before they drop them off the next day. When you're talking to parents, this is a great time to relay your knowledge on guidance versus discipline to families. You can help the parents understand that most behaviors are normal and age appropriate, and that they're not something that you're angry at their child about. You can provide handouts on topics like biting, sharing, and behavior guidance techniques that you use in the classroom. Make sure these things match up with what your overall school policy is. And always, always, always remember to be positive when speaking with parents about misbehaviors in the classroom. So I really hope after both parts of this series that you have a better understanding of what causes misbehavior in children, going back to the hierarchy of needs. I really hope that you can apply this to your thinking in your classroom when you have a child that's misbehaving. Don't forget that sometimes it can just be a basic need that's causing that child to act out. Look for the basic needs first. Is this child hungry? Is this child cold? Does this child need comfort? Look for those things first before you try to give discipline or guidance. We also went greatly into detail about setting up the classroom environment to avoid misbehaviors. We discussed some very valuable parent communication tools to use, and we went over provocations very thoroughly. You have a homework assignment concerning provocations that you will have to complete in order to get your certificate for this course. The homework assignment is described on the next slide. So for your last homework assignment for this course, I want you to come up with a provocation that would be appropriate for a group of 2-year-olds that are interested in cats. Now, I said 2-year-olds because I do want you to keep in mind that the items that you use, any kind of loose parts, you should definitely take safety into consideration when choosing your items. Give me a list of a few things, maybe how you would set them up, where you would place them in the classroom. Describe the provocation for me. I want at least 3 to 4 sentences describing what you would put out, where they would be, what's included on the table. After that paragraph, I want you to just identify 3 skills they can build with this provocation, whether it's literacy, counting, social skills, sharing, anything you could think of. I want you to identify 3 skills that they can build with that provocation. That's your homework assignment. You've been given more specific instructions in the email of how to hand that in. You're just handing it into my email. My email's in the Word document that I sent you. And if you have any questions, again, don't forget to reach out. I can help you with the process. If you're stuck on something, give me a phone call here at Smart Start during business hours, 8:30 to 5. My contact information is in the email. And that's it. You have officially completed your 2-hour training on taming the wild in your classroom. Don't forget to complete the surveys and hand in your in-class assignments and your homework assignments so that you can get your certificate. Thank you.